welcome to the In His Voice podcast, hosted by me, Rob L. Lowe, where we talk about the trials and tribulations that deeply impact the lives of boys and men without ever bashing women. We talk about everything from the bedroom to the boardroom, from the playground to the stadium, and everything in between. So get ready, lock yourself in, let's talk about it. Before we go forward, remember to hit that like button, subscribe, follow, share with your friends, and thank you for the support. All right, we're in season 3. Season 3, you guys. I cannot believe that we've already completed 2 seasons of the podcast. And I'm shooting out here in LA at the LA studio. Believe it or not, I actually have my wife who is producing the podcast for me right now. It's really dope, and she was the editor of my book. Most people don't know that, right? She was really dope, and the reason why that's important, because this particular episode talks about bi-coastal living. So in one of my previous episodes, I talked about living in 19 cities, right? 19 cities in the 30 plus years. I talked about living away from my family 6 different times in my career, where I actually had a physical address in a different city from them. And that doesn't include just me traveling around the country, around the world. I've been fortunate. I've had a chance to go work in Amsterdam. I had a chance to go work in Brussels, and actually work, not leisure. I had a chance to go work in Italy. I had a chance to go work in the UK, in Wales. I had a chance to go work in Costa Rica, in Mexico. There's probably so many other ones that I'm missing right now, so forgive me. But this particular show, so as I stated, I am literally filming this in my Los Angeles studio here, and then I also had the Orlando studio back home. So when I'm there, I'm shooting podcasts and I'm inviting guests. But it's hard, this bi-coastal living, right? So this particular subject is, how do you survive, or how do you adjust, or how do you make the most of living bi-coastal? So there's pros and cons. So you hear people say, oh man, I jet set across the country, like it's bi-coastal. Yeah, that's cool. I ain't quite there yet where I'm jet setting on my own private jet. I hope to get there one day. But what I can tell you is, between Los Angeles and Orlando, we're talking about the 5th and 6th or 5th and 7th busiest airport in the country. There's never an empty seat if you're flying on Delta American, which is what I generally fly. And when you get on the plane, they're crowded, right? So they're super crowded. But those 5-hour, 4.5-hour flights can be brutal. So in order for me to make the most of it, I generally catch red eyes. So I generally leave out on like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, sometimes midnight, out of LA. And when I get on the plane, I actually I'll have melatonin, and I'll chew a melatonin like 45 minutes before they board. And by the time I get on the plane, I always get on the end seat and I time it. And then, once I get on the plane, that's it. Now, it's not a great sleep, don't get me wrong, but I land in Orlando like 6 in the morning, 6:30, and then I'm able to function with a cup of coffee and then keep going. And same thing when I come back to LA, I usually fly out like, if it's on a Sunday, I'll fly in the afternoon, I'll get back here at night. Otherwise, I'll fly out Monday morning. I think my flight leaves out of there like 7 a.m. and I usually get back to LA like 8:30 or 9 o'clock, right before I head into the office. So as soon as I get off the plane, I grab my car, I go to work. And so that's the travel piece, right, of how do I make it work. But the other piece is, man, Florida is very different than Los Angeles. I'm not going to say one is better than the other, because that's unfair. Because if you meet folks from LA, they'll tell you there's no place like LA. No place like it. If you meet people from Florida, they'll say there's no place like Florida because of the beaches, the sand, the sunshine. Folks from LA, well, the saying is people come to Los Angeles for the weed, the weather, and the women, depending on what your choice is. but Los Angeles is beautiful, right? Los Angeles and the whole area has these extreme climate shifts. So if you stay closer to the water, it's cooler, and the further you get either to the valley or the Inland Empire or out towards the desert, it can be a 30-degree, 25-degree temperature change. And so both have their own culture. And what I've learned, because I've lived so many places, I've learned not to find what's wrong with the place. I try to go find what's good. And so, bi-coastal. I live in Florida. I live in Los Angeles. So when I'm in LA, I find the things that are really cool out here. I'll tell you something that's trendy in Los Angeles, right? We heard of Taco Tuesdays around the country, a whole nother level here in Los Angeles. Los Angeles, it is a very outdoor friendly environment. People like to take walks. People go to the parks. People walk their dogs. A lot of outdoor restaurants because the temperature is mild. Some cool vibes. You'll find some old school sets, as well as a lot of day parties for young people. I don't go to those, but they're out there. And so there's a lot of cool things. And then, there's diversity out here. I'll tell you what, here's interesting. I didn't know this till I came out here. Do you know there's more Asians that live in the Los Angeles area and in California than there are black people? And then there's more Hispanics, primarily Mexicans or Mexican Americans that live here more than any other group. And I didn't realize that till I got out here. And so Florida has a huge black population, but the black population is a combination of Jamaicans, Haitians, and then we say Hispanics, but we have darker Cubans, we have darker Dominican Republicans, people from other countries. And we talk about Hispanic also in Florida. You got to remember there's a lot of folks who come from South America and Central America, whereas in California, the overwhelming majority are probably Mexican and Mexican Americans. In Florida, you might have Venezuelan, you have Colombian, you have Peruvian, you got Dominican, you name it, you got Cuban. And so there's this melting pot. And what I would tell you, even in both coasts, you have pockets of isolations, right? Don't get me wrong. And what I've learned in both coasts is in California, this rift does exist. There is a rift between cultures, and it's not always as pervasive, but it definitely exists. And in Florida, the rift, I wouldn't say it's a rift per se, as opposed to there is clear separation of neighborhoods versus culture based on the country they come from, whereas they all might be Hispanic, but there's certain countries that occupy a certain area of the city, and certain countries that may not. And so it's very different. But in either case, I actually love the experience that I get. I love experiencing the different food. I love experiencing the different weather because, LA there, I haven't got bit by a mosquito yet. I literally have been out here for months now. Never got bit by a mosquito. When I go home to Florida, I go out in my backyard to have a cigar. They waiting for me, so I gotta light the tiki torches, have the lamp that zaps them, you name it. And here I can go outside and walk. It's such a breeze. It's beautiful. People are laid back. People walking their dogs. Interesting. Another difference between the two. There's homeless in most major cities. And in Florida, there's homeless, right? Don't get me wrong, in Orlando, and they generally hover around downtown. But if you ever been to Los Angeles, this is a whole nother level. And there's a lot of circumstances that creates it. So this is not to point blame. But it almost seems that there's this condition to accept it. It's the norm here. I joke a lot with some of my friends. I say, man, in Los Angeles, people treat their pets better than they do homeless people on the street. And of course, that's a generalization. That's not true in every scenario. But make no mistake about it. Pets here in California, priority. Like, I've never been anywhere else where people take them in the store as frequently as they do. They're out walking, they're nurturing. I'm a kid from the inner city of Indianapolis. So when I see dudes that have dogs, they usually got big dogs, like big dogs, Rottweiler, Pit Bulls, Cane Corsos, Doberman Shepherds, Dobermans or German Shepherds. And every time I walk outside, I see these big muscular dudes, these little bitty poodles or Pomeranians or small dogs. They're walking like 2 or 3 of them. And so I'm like, yeah, I don't see that in my neighborhood in Florida. And so, you just have to appreciate the different cultures. Man, downtown Los Angeles, downtown Orlando's cool. A lot of stuff going on. Downtown Los Angeles, you can just feel the heartbeat, right? When you get down there, and then there's different sections of downtown Los Angeles. So, whereas downtown Orlando is one section, right? There's a couple streets, everything happens. You can be in LA on one side of downtown and enjoy one vibe, and you go to another side of downtown LA, a totally different vibe. And so I definitely can appreciate that. And then, if you know me, I smoke cigars, right? Cigar lounges in Florida, a whole party. Like, yes, you're smoking cigars, but it is a whole vibe. It's where people go. It's where, people go after they leave a party, they go to a cigar lounge. Where in California, cigar lounges are designed to be lounges where people just go chill. And actually, there are more gentleman lounges out here than I would say vibes, right? And there's some laws that affect why that is in California versus Florida. So either way, bi-coastal living has its pros and cons. It's about what you make of it. And, you just have to be committed to the journey. So if you're someone who's considering living bi-coastal, man, make sure you think about what you want to achieve, what do you want to experience, and also just be sensitive to the different cultural perspectives in the different locations, right? A lot of people make the mistake of going somewhere and comparing them and saying one is better than the other. It's not. They're just different, and there's value in each one. So whether you're bi-coastal from New York to LA, from Florida to Michigan, from Alaska to Hawaii, listen, when you get there, take an inventory of the cool spots to visit and enjoy it. And as always, live your life to the fullest. Listen, thank you for tuning in. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode of the In His Voice podcast with me, Rob L. Lowe. Peace.